Okay. Well, good morning. I am Mark Scott. I am a senior software engineer with TB Consulting. When most people meet me, they say two things. The first one is, hey, you're a man with two first names. Actually, I have three. But when I introduce myself as Mark Eric Scott, people think I'm a serial killer. The second thing is, do you know you look like Seth Rogen? And the answer is painfully yes. All right, so this is making the most of the mid-server. If you're a project manager, you're probably not supposed to be here. This is the safe harbor notice. This is the IT equivalent of some side effects may happen. I have to say this, I hate these things, but everything I say is 100% true. Just kidding. All right, so this is me. I am a software developer, mainly in the C#, MVC, Web API. I've been doing that for about 7 years, 3 years on ServiceNow platform. I love it. And I was a speaker at Knowledge 17, if you guys remember, on source control. Right now, I'm working on delivering some client implementations. TB Consulting is an MSP. We help implement for our clients. And I'm marrying ServiceNow with a hyper-converged infrastructure called Nutanix. If you want to learn more about that, we've got a booth. And this is my Mr. Peanut picture. I have a great story about this. When I originally did my talk, Brett Oliker said, hey, you have to tell this story. So a few years ago, I worked for a startup. We were Series A funded, working on Series B. So we had a lot of those dev cowboys. I was one of them. The HR lady came into our office and said, hey, we're having the employee pictures taken. Please dress your best. And I said, what does that mean? Because I'm a smart-ass software developer. And she said, just look nice. And I said, okay. And I went out and I bought a top hat, monocle, three-piece suit, and not pictured is the cane. And I took that picture. I sat down in front of the photographer and I said, this is what I'm wearing. And they said, ha, 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 now take it off. I said, no. And they said, well, we've got investors coming to see the company directory. And I said, who do you think is writing the software for the company directory? And she kind of looked at me mouth agape, and I said, it's going to happen one of two ways. I'm either going to hard code it in, or you're going to let it happen, but either way, it's going in there. It made it in there. Again, we have a booth at P7. If you want to learn a little bit more of a practical application of what you're about to learn today, we have a product called NX Fusion, and it's helping us integrate with Nutanix. All right, so quick agenda. I love mid-servers. So if you don't know all the functionality of a mid-server, that's okay. I'm going to go over that today. I'm also got a couple of demos, and then we're going to go over the art of the possible, because a lot of what we're going to do is a little abstract. Okay, so again, we'll learn why mid-servers are awesome and what they can do to make them work for you, why we use it, we'll define and understand the ECC queue, we'll augment some of the stuff with some Java, and we'll understand how to communicate to and from our ServiceNow instances to our mid-servers. All right, a little mid-server number 101. Raise your hand if you know what mid stands for. Yeah, not a lot. Management, instrumentation, and discovery. That's what the mid-server stands for. I always thought it was because it was between your firewall and your ServiceNow instance. It actually stands for management, instrumentation, and discovery. It can run as a Windows service or a Unix daemon. It sits behind your organization's firewall and allows you to talk to applications that you may not want to expose out to the internet, keep on your in your corporate network without traversing the internet. This slide is really cool because you can see that you can actually stick mid-servers in the cloud and run discovery on cloud. You can put them inside your firewall. You can have them anywhere. They can discover desktops, routers, Windows servers, anything. They're really, really great at doing discovery, and that's what most people use them for. It is also a Java application, so you don't have to worry about installing a whole bunch of drivers or custom code from ServiceNow. They have this one package that ships down to you. Very quick install. I've done it in 10 minutes or less. It's very quick to stand up. And you can have as many as you want, no licensing implications. You can put as many into your network, and you don't have to pay for each one. You get those for free. All right, so what are some good things that we can use the mid server for? So long-running transactions, anything that has to go to a database and pull a whole bunch of information back, anything that runs a complex function or super interesting code or something that you just can't get done with the JavaScript or workflow inside of the platform. And again, things that the platform can't do. You could even do image or video processing, and we'll see a little tiny bit of that in one of my demos today. So the bad, anything the user is waiting on. We'll learn why the ECC queue is actually not a very quick process. And anything that needs eyeballs. So the mid server runs headless. You can't see what's going on. There's no graphical user interface to interact with it. So anything that needs human eyeballs, you have to scrap that idea to use the mid server. So this is a very busy slide. But this is stolen straight from a ServiceNow presentation. This is exactly how the ECC queue and the mid server interact. The main focus here is that it's cyclical. Everything goes into the ECC queue database table. The AMD channel pulls that out, pushes it into a listener that runs on the mid server. The mid server queues that work to be done. It comes back into the ECC queue saying that, yes, I have completed this work. And finally, it writes that into the table again. Very, 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 there's a lot of code going on in this that you don't have to worry about when you start delving into mid-server architecture. Okay. These are the Java packages. So this is literally code that you can write inside of Java, an Eclipse IDE, any IDE that writes Java. You can write this code, package it into what's called a jar file, and then you can ship that jar file down to your mid server using the ServiceNow interface. You don't have to log on to each individual mid server. You can actually just upload as an attachment, and it will distribute to all the mid servers in your network automatically. If you need to do an update, again, attach it as an attachment, everything goes down to the mid server. You don't have to manage it. ServiceNow has taken that away from you. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It has to run or return something to the ECC queue. And that has to be something serializable. That's a programmer term for data. It's data that I can consume. So is it a string, which is just numbers and letters? Is it JSON or bytes? Or it could be nothing. Maybe it's set it and forget it. We're just going to push it to the mid server, run that code, and let it go. The main thing here to notice is this package up at the top there. That allows you to name and namespace all of your code. Then when you get down to it, you have your class, and you can instantiate your class using that packages. Using the packages directive down at the bottom there in the JavaScript, where you start with mid-server script includes. You can actually call Java code from JavaScript inside the ServiceNow package as long as it's loaded into the mid-server. Okay, a couple of best practices. We always want to call Java packages from mid-server script includes. I am a huge fan of script includes. My entire team puts all of our logic in script includes because it makes it reusable. We can use them anywhere. Doesn't matter. We can call them from client side, we can call them from server side. Mid-server script includes work very much the same way. I can call that script include from any other part in my code and return results if needed. This is kind of my own personal best practice, but I like to log all my console messages to a log file. So one of the things to really kind of wrap your head around is that when you install custom code into a mid-server, it's running on the mid-server. It's not running in your ServiceNow instance. So when I do a console.log or a print out or any one of those functions that would give me some debug information, it lives on the mid-server. So what I like to do is I like to have the Java package actually say, all my logging calls, write them to a file, and then later when I'm very frustrated and I have to actually jump on the server, I can look through that and see what the heck was going on with my code at that time. Long-running processes. So long-running processes need to run async. That's just a basic fundamental understanding of what the ServiceNow platform does and software development practices in general. Don't lock the UI. Don't make the user sit there and wait with that little spinny icon. It doesn't make any sense. Let those things run in the background. Let them update the tickets or the records that you have without making the user wait for it. Work that into your workflows. And this one just seems so really obvious to me, but I wanted to put it up here anyway. Deploy a dev or a test mid-server. Whenever you're doing anything with code, that doesn't even mean mid-server. Always have a dev or a test. We don't like to run code in production. We don't like to change code in production. That's why we have change. We have to make sure that we have a good place set up where we can run all of the code without worrying about it coming down or impacting business. Okay, now we're going to get into some demos. My first demo is building a streaming socket server. So when I set out on this, I'm like, well, I need data. Where am I going to get this data from? Twitter. If you know me, and I know I have a couple of my Twitter followers in here, I love Twitter. I'm constantly on. And the best way I could figure out to come up with a bunch of data is to get you guys involved. So in a few minutes here, I'm going to throw up a hashtag. I'd like you to send some tweets out if you have Twitter with that hashtag. But first, let's do some perspective. So this isn't really a typical setup for the mid-server. Initially, I have a request that goes out that says, hey, can you please spin up this new streaming socket server? Cool. The ECC queue takes that, processes it, and pushes it into my mid-server. My mid-server, being smart enough to call my packages on my jar file, calls out to my jar file. That request creates a brand new thread. That thread stays alive for the course of this cycle. My request comes back to the ECC queue saying, hey, I'm done. The request goes back into my ServiceNow tables, and that portion disconnects completely. So now I have this thread running out there on this server, and ServiceNow doesn't have to know anything about it. It's just running. Finally, we'll have your guys' tweets come in. They're in the JSON format. It'll go into the Twitter streaming API that Twitter controls. It will then be emitted into my streaming socket server, where I then push it into a custom API that I have developed on ServiceNow, and then into my tables. So let's see it. So this is the hashtag. It's the name of the session, or the code of the session. So what we're going to do, I'm going to switch over to my ServiceNow instance here. So we're going to go Twitter, and I have this server management UI page. It does one thing. It has one button. It's a beautiful user interface. If you guys need training on this, see me after. I'm going to click the button. It says Start Server. Twitter streaming server was started. That's it. So I'll go into our tweets. So you can see it's actually been capturing a lot of these for quite a while. So I'm going to go ahead and tweet one out right now. And please, if you guys are tweeting as well, do so. All right. All right, mine's sent there. Hit refresh. Ooh, look at that. A lot of you guys. That's awesome. Thank you. All right, so you can see I've got this number here, and I call this time difference in seconds. And what I'm doing is I'm actually keeping a rolling average. So what this does is I count the time that the tweet hit Twitter's database. There's a created timestamp on that. That gets emitted into my API. My API then uses the created date time to do a difference, 5.7 seconds. Using the mid server and a streaming socket server, I can get your tweets in 5 seconds. No polling, no asking Twitter, hey, give me more, no deduplication, none of it. We're just pulling all of these in near real time from the mid server. Do one more refresh and see if we got anybody else. I'd like to also shout out to my wife, who is at home right now. My mid server runs in my garage, and I have a full 40U rack in my garage with like this one block of compute. The compute block may be overpowering the circuit in my house. So she can't microwave anything between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. when my demo's done. So I would like for you guys to, you know, tweet some good things about my session so that I can say, look, honey, it was all worth it. Okay. Cool. That was fun. All right, my next demo here is the, I messed these slides up, that's all right. So the next demo here is a little bit of machine learning. Can anyone tell me, or raise your hand if you know the difference, or what is the true difference between machine learning and AI? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Okay, so the true blue difference between AI and machine learning is that machine learning is written either in R or Python by a software developer. AI is written in PowerPoint by your sales team. So, whoever that was that totally stole my thunder, you get a prize. We've got some swag bags. Please go pick that up because I was not expecting that. But hey, I'm not a total failure. I can still be used as a bad example. All right. So, what I have written is an integration into ServiceNow. Now, how many of you guys are fans of the Silicon Valley show, or I'm sorry, the HBO show Silicon Valley? Okay. Yeah, is anybody slightly offended by that show? Because you may want to avert your eyes. So one of the things that they build in that show is an app. And the app is called Seafood. It was based on an app that was created earlier in the season called Not Hot Dog. It was an AI algorithm that could go out and classify if your food was a hot dog or not. I'm not a data scientist. So when I submitted this, first of all, I submitted this session as kind of a joke because I wanted to pack as many buzzwords into it as possible, and I knew that machine learning would pique interest. Then it was selected. And I had to figure out what the heck I was going to do. So I took the not hot dog concept and integrated it into ServiceNow. So, all right, so what I have is, well, let's step back for just a little bit. Because I want to explain how this works. So what R is it's just a language. It's a scripting language very similar to JavaScript in the sense that it's more towards machine learning and building machine learning algorithms. What's kind of weird about R is there's no real way, it's not like a program, it's not compiled, so you have to call to it. So my mid server actually calls to the R script file, and that's how it does its classification. And again, this is the mid server that's sitting in my garage that's preventing my wife from microwaving her breakfast. So I have my incidents table here. All right, so let's find an incident. I'm working with all the demo data. So let's go to this one. And what I have, pull this over onto my screen here, is I have the weirdest subdirectory ever. It's called hot dogs. And if my IT people are watching this and like they're seeing what's happening on my screen right now, please don't judge me too harshly. So what we're going to do is we're going to upload a hot dog as an attachment. So let's pick one here. I'm going to pick this one with mustard. That one looks good. We're going to plop it right on our interface. So what's going on right now is this is going into the sysattachments table. Sysattachments table has a business rule on it that says, hey, when I see an upload come in, give me all the data, pipe it out to the mid server. The mid server will go to my R script, run the analysis to determine if this is a hot dog or not, turn it all back. There's a business rule that says, hey, when you're done with this, update the ticket. And I have the most interesting incident management system in the world because I have a hot dog subsection here. So we have two fields. Hot dog confidence. We are 100% confident that's a hot dog. Good news. And just in case you didn't get it, there's a checkbox on the other side that says, is hot dog. So we've got you covered. Well, that's great, but how do I know just everything comes back as a hot dog? All right, well, I have the second most interesting subdirectory in my computer, not hot dogs. Good news, I'm not. But I'll prove it. So let's grab a hamburger, because the opposite of hot dog is always hamburger. We're going to upload this, and what's going to happen is it's going to go back to the mid server, do some classification, and it's going to come back as soon as it uploads. Wait for it. There it is. And hot dog confidence is now under 1%. So we've unchecked the box. That's it. All right, so maybe I've trained it for hot dogs and hamburgers. Let's just make sure. Here's a Falcon Heavy rocket. It kind of looks like a hot dog. Maybe I'll trip up my AI now. There it is. So it's less than 1% that it is sure that is a hot dog. All right, so I guess I'll do me. I will hope that I do not come back and my AI is wrong, because that would be very embarrassing. Okay, so apparently I'm a little more of a hot dog than a Falcon Heavy rocket. Who knew? All right. So, great. Cool story. It's fun, we had some laughs, who cares? Well, one of the things that I've seen a lot of companies doing is they're pushing towards their service or their support staff being on social media. Has anybody ever put a ticket in with Spotify? Yeah, because you have to tweet them. You have to send them a DM. You have to get them involved on social media. They don't have a 1-800 number that I know of or a support email address that I can find. So everybody's on social media. What does that mean for you guys? Well, if I can get to the people faster, if I can pull those tweets in faster, I know what the heck's going on. I know that if my clients are mad or saying there's a service down, a product offering that isn't working, and they're tweeting about it, I can actually pull that into my ServiceNow instance much faster. I don't have to wait 5, 10, 15 minutes after they've tweeted. I can get to them very, very quickly. CSRs are going to be using social media now to be pulling that in. You want to smash the two examples together. What about if I took all the tweets that were coming in about my company and I put them through some sort of machine learning, some sentiment analysis? It made me very happy to see that in the keynote the other day. We could actually get a gauge on how our customers are feeling about a product, an offering, a hashtag, anything. We could start pulling those analytics into our ServiceNow system and actually triaging them as incidents or events. So, yeah, cool. But what's the hot dog thing have to do with it? Well, the app in Silicon Valley eventually became an explicit image filter. How many of you with confidence can say that there isn't anything unsavory uploaded into your sysattachments table? I can't. Why are we not doing this analysis on these things? Europe just passed Article 13. How many of you know if your instance is housing copyrighted material and you're doing business in Europe? It's going to come up. So we can start applying these machine learning concepts. We can start moving these workloads out to the mid server and doing a lot with them. We can start doing these image manipulation. We can do damn near anything you can think of, a little bit of Java code, and put it on your mid server and run a payload through it. And what comes back is important. It's very valuable to your business. All right. So submit the surveys. I jokingly said if no one submitted the survey, I could then submit a 5 and automatically give myself a 5, but that's up to you. Social experiment. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for making it all the way up to this ballroom. I know that's not a short trek. And thank you for having me. I'll take questions if you guys have questions, or we can let you guys have a couple minutes back.